so my statement is that our domain is not authentic in any case. And however, we do ask our students in our domain to sit tests all the time. They are reading articles they're not interested in. They are, doing many of the things that you just suggested they do in testing. And I would say that, we probably assess them in a more standardized, a more ethical and humane manner than they ever get assessed in their first year, sociology class where it's all multiple choice and one little essay question.
So IELTS has two versions. I think I mentioned there's the general training version and the academic version. For both versions, the listening and speaking tests are the same, and the reading and writing rubrics are different. Rubric, by the way, in British Council terms, means question. Here in Canada, it means event. The general training writing, for example, has two tasks. The first one is a letter. They give them specific bullets so that they can say address this, this, and this. You're writing a letter to a friend inviting her to come to a party or something. And it's really just a game. It's information transfer exercise. The second part of the general training is an expository essay. The language is pitched at about a 6.5 level, and so it should be more easily accessible to people who are looking to IELTS for immigration purposes, which is these days one of the biggest draws for IELTS. The academic version, task 1, is an information transfer exercise, so it's a graph or a table, and they have to describe it for an educated person. And then another expository essay for task 2, pitched at perhaps a little higher level lexically. What else will I say? I'm not sure that I'm answering the question you are.
Great. No fight.
Were there any other questions from the floor at this point? Yes.
Given that country for IELTS who says that the gross is provided is pretty TOEFL for fairly full time and students, and I would say GDP is actually or that's the IELTS. So whose responsibility is it to tell students within the institutions that they've got a good level, but they're not considered through, they still have to face some challenges. There's an assumption, they get that mark, they're good to go, and they're not. So who tells the students that? Who tells the administrators? Who's responsible?
So, very good question. Who's responsible for everything?
How are you going to tell that educational institution who needs those upfront dollars? It's not on a 2-year slip funding. It's instant money when you have an international student. How are you going to tell them, you have to be more ethical. You have to require a higher TOEFL or CAEL or IELTS score. They're not going to buy it because, as Dr. Sullivan said,
But I want to know if they actually know that. I don't think they know.
We used to tell them all the time because we were their provider. We had the same sort of a thing. We would say, allow these students to take one university course and they can continue on if they get through our EAP program. Again, all of what we do started because of a professor at the University of Waterloo who actually wrote the Descartes, which is an assessment. It broke his heart that he had so many brilliant mathematicians from Hong Kong and Taiwan and China who came into the university based on phenomenal math scores, and they fail out at Christmas because of the language scores. That's why they looked around for an EAP to fit together with that to somehow give them time to grow into the language.
Wendy, would you say that it's your responsibility or is it the responsibility of the university?
Well, no, it's our responsibility to tell them what score. We say you need a 70, but they don't always listen. And again, they're concerned about the students that are in the seats and the money that they're making. So.
Well, I think that the scores in Canada tend to be very uniform. Most universities are in a range. If you look at the scores from the United States universities, it's a huge range, and some of them are shockingly low. Like, for example, I hope no one's here from Tennessee, but Middle Tennessee State University TOEFL score of 61 is what they require, which is really just very low intermediate English proficiency. And so I think it goes back to Barry's point about the universities wanting to check things too.
And just to say, to be in defense of ETS, since 1964, since it came out first, the TOEFL has always had a health warning. It's always said, only interpret the score in this way. Don't take it as a line in the sand. There is an error attached. Don't take this as the only evidence of a person's ability. It's been there since 1964. TOEFL has been trying to tell people for 50 years. They don't listen. So the question isn't who should be telling them, is what should they be doing? It's their responsibility.
For one thing, no,
Yeah, but as long as we have institutions like TOEFL that tell you this is the way you should use the score, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people in testing disagree with me, I have to say. But as far as I'm concerned, they've been doing their job right for 50 years. Administrators haven't. It's their problem. Remember, Douglas Adams, somebody else's problem. It's not their problem. They're doing their job. Administrators aren't. It's their problem. Let them sue the administrator.
Thank you. This seems to have raised a few hands here. At the back.
Yeah, a lot of our students, especially from Arabic countries, have a lot of problems with spelling. My question is whether you judge their writing regarding their poor spelling. The other thing is that a lot of them come with a poor knowledge of computer and typing skills. Do all of your tests use computer? And if yes, or then do you give them more time for that? How do you judge? What is the situation with the computer applications in this case? Thank you.
I think this is a two-part question, which is fairly simple to answer. So, Carol, short answer, please. So 2 parts. Is it a computer-based test? And is spelling penalized if the spelling is wrong?
Well, the TOEFL IDT is computerized, so the students do have to use the keyboard to write their essays. And I guess it's a job for you folks or Christian's school to make sure the students have keyboarding skills. When you brought out the TOEFL IDT, we did do a study and we found that most students these days do have keyboarding skills. But if they don't have them when they come to you, that's an important skill that they need to develop. So spelling. Yeah, we use holistic scoring with the TOEFL, so spelling doesn't really count per se. But of course, if spelling starts to interfere with the meaning and the understanding of the whole passage, then it will be scored down.
So IELTS is a paper and pencil test, except in the UK where they have some computer-based versions. Spelling is assessed under a lexical resource, and it's, again, to take a communicative approach, it's to what degree the spelling interferes with the reader's comprehension of what the writer's trying to say. So density there is an issue, but certainly small spelling mistakes, it isn't such a big detriment.
If I may, Carol, sorry, just some of you might know that in IELTS, when there's a listening activity, sometimes the students have to write a few answers, a short word answer, a short answer with three words or so. And it's the same with the reading. Is spelling penalized if the student listens correctly but misspells a word?
No, Shirley, you should speak to that.
It is marked wrong. Spelling is critical in the listening.
And the reading as well.
Listening and reading.
So that if the student has poor spelling, they're actually going to get a lower score even if their ability is above that. Okay.
And could I add another piece? But for this lady with candidates from the Middle East, in writing, an inductive style of writing, which tends to be the Middle Eastern way of writing good essays, is not at all penalized. North Americans use a deductive style, and we train our examiners to understand that as long as the thesis is there somewhere, it doesn't have to be in the first paragraph.
CAEL is paper and pencil, and we have resisted going computerized for the particular issues that you mentioned, that we felt that not everyone had access to computer skills. So then the issue was handwriting, and certainly when you are changing the direction of your writing and so on, it can have quite an effect on the way it looks and the spelling. In terms of our writing, we read aloud. So we do it in groups of 3. One person will read aloud so that the other 2 don't have an opportunity to see the writing and the spelling. They listen to the meaning. Then the essay is put down in the middle. We make an assessment, and then they can pick up the essay and look at it, and the assessment is negotiated. So it depends, again, if the spelling has confused the reader. Generally, if it is phonetically correct, then it's acceptable. And particularly in the listening, those areas, spelling is not. But it's when they confuse a word, when they need the word scream, and they use the word scream, and aren't sure whether they heard the word correctly or not. So if it interferes with meaning, then yes. But if it's just a matter of the letters, no, it isn't. They aren't marked.
That's great, thank you. And I think the last example of screen and scream probably is a sort of Freudian thing going on. Students are screaming the exam, perhaps. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, at the front.
I just had one comment. It's getting back to the issue of our standards set too low, making it impossible for students to actually succeed in university. There is some evidence that may challenge this received idea that we all have, but that I'd invite you to consult. There was a study recently done at Western where they have a somewhat floating requirement for TOEFL, assuming that people have very strong academic skills, and this may be like that where people had very high academic skills, they were allowing what might be seen as shockingly low TOEFL entry requirements. They tracked over 4 years their first year GPA, their final year GPA, and their overall pass rate, which were not significantly different from people who might have higher requirements or who didn't have to provide language proficiency. So we shouldn't be making a linear correlation between the standards that we set and what they have to do, the tasks that they have to be able to accomplish throughout their career. The context provides for supporting the university. Our standard setting is relative to the context. It should be relative to the context that we get for the teacher.
So a very interesting comment, not exactly a question. So perhaps you could share your name, and anybody who's interested come and talk to you at the next break or lunch.
Sure. My name is Doug Orm. I'm
That's great, thank you. And there's a question here.
The institution has to do due diligence, not only know to spend time and money, I think, to do that. They want to get financial and professionals, because of what they are, but not that purpose.
That's great, thank you. I'm just going to summarize that. The basic point is, if you ask a shark, what does it want to eat? You might not get the answer you like. So perhaps we could slightly rephrase that and ask, to what extent have the students, who are the ones who are going to be taking the test, and the institutions being part of the test development process? I'll ask Doug to handle that. Just to recap, have students been involved and have institutions been involved in the test development process? And if so, how? If not, why?
Yes, absolutely. When we started redeveloping the TOEFL was the new TOEFL IBT was launched, as you probably know, around 2005. And the project was actually started in the late 1990s, so it was a development project for about 7 or 8 years to put the new test together. And the first thing we did was actually go to campuses and look at what students were talking about on campus, what professors were talking about in their lectures, what kind of readings students had to do in their classes and that sort of thing. And so we developed an actual corpus of content that was the base for the new TOEFL IBT. So what we wanted to do was make it an authentic test based on what really happens on campus.
Well, definitely the development was situated in the university context with students and professors taking part in the development. That was the focus. That was how it was developed.
I almost feel as if Jerry did better to answer this question than I haven't done any research at Cambridge. I know that their research department does do testing with students, trying to develop new models and new versions of IELTS. Certainly in 1995, they changed the speaking test completely. And that's the version that we're using right now. Or that was 1998. It started in 1995. I guess I really shouldn't answer that because I don't have enough data to be honest with you.
Thank you for the honesty. And thank you everyone for interesting questions from the floor, and to Wendy, Carol and Doug for handling all those questions with aplomb. So thank you very much.